Hello everyone. Welcome back to Reddit Night. Today we are taking a look at some crazy coincidences. What was the biggest coincidence in your life? Tell us in the comments. What was the biggest coincidence that made you question the fabric of reality? This guy I went to grade school and high school with, an acquaintance at best. I've seen him in 5 different locations in different countries throughout the last 15 years. Disney World when I was a kid. Some beach bar in Thailand. The Bean in Chicago. A pub in Budapest. A library in San Jose, Costa Rica. We've become friends due to our love of traveling, but neither of us post on social media and neither of us communicated with each other our plans to travel. We never talked outside of the random meetings. Now if I see him, it's like the world wants us to have a beer together. Ha! My friend and I were on a road trip a few years ago and needed a place to stay. We both told each other we had a friend in the city we were going through, so we figured we'd be able to crash with one of them. Turns out our 2 friends were roommates and had both been telling each other that they had a friend coming to town soon. My dad lives in a national park here in Australia. It's farmland that's grandfathered in. It's the remnants of a volcano that blew itself up very violently, so it's very hilly terrain. One day we were sitting out on the deck, when we see a hang glider come down halfway down the valley, and it didn't look like a nice landing. Shit, we better see if he's alright, they don't land anywhere near here. So we get in the car, drive for about 10 minutes to reach the spot. We head over to the guy who is standing by a very damaged glider. The pilot is staring at us incredulously, he stammers, "Frick, Jack, is that you?" My dad, who hasn't seen his childhood friend for 35 years shouts, "Frick, Tim, that you?" They both grew up in Greymouth, NZ. Found each other randomly after a glider crash in NSW, Australia. My mom and I were heading out for a morning shopping trip, so I was in the shower pretty early, around 7:15 a.m. or so. My grandpa had been ill with a cold, which could be concerning as he only had one lung, but was recuperating at home and had seemed perfectly fine when we spoke to him on the phone the previous day. Chipper, even. Yet out of nowhere, my brain suddenly went, "We're not going shopping, he's died." I have intrusive thoughts every so often, so I just told myself to shut up and get on with the shampoo. 5 minutes later Mom bangs on the door to tell me my grandpa had passed away in his sleep and we need to head over to his house. I don't believe in psychics or precognition or anything like that, and I've never even thought of myself as a particularly perceptive person either. Like, I'm as dense as a brick most times. Which is why this still has me spooked 14 years later. Last week I am at work doing a job, my coworker strikes up a conversation with the homeowner at the job site and mentions that his parents live across the street from him. He also asks how long he had lived there. Homeowner responds that it has only been a few months, he just moved to the city from small town several hours away. Coworker laughs and says he was born and raised in that town. Then asks, "Do you know the miniplex at the corner of X Street and Y Street?" "I lived right across from that." Homeowner looks confused. "Do you mean at 103 X Street? That was my house." They talked more, and discovered that my coworker's parents had sold their house to this homeowner when they moved to the city. He lived there for 15 years, and then sold it to move to the same city, across the street from the previous owners. Small world. So this one definitely fricked me up for a bit. It's a bit of a story. I met this girl who worked at the farmer's market, we would see each other on Saturdays and chit-chat on occasion. Eventually we exchanged Instagram accounts, found out we were both into home brewing and fermentation. She posted that she had 40 pounds of apples and had run out of fermentation vessels. I reached out, found out we're close neighbors and went to pick up the apples. We decided to hang out in a few weeks and compare our home brews. When we hung out, we really hit it off. She had just moved to Boston a year ago after touring with a band through Europe. She had only been to Boston once before in 2013, but only for a weekend to play a festival. Anyway, we started seeing each other pretty often. One day we were laying in bed, talking about a future where we had a farm and we're talking about our pet pig Francois. I mentioned that at one point I had the chance to walk a piglet on a leash. As I'm scrolling through my phone to find this photo, I have what I can only describe as a strong calling/energy to check a different photo not too far from that one. So I open this picture that's calling me. I remember that day. It was October 2013, I was outside of my undergrad dorm, enjoying a nice day, when suddenly this brass ensemble walks by, playing. They get to a little platform that was outside, play music for like 10 minutes for the random people who were outside enjoying the day, and then they keep going. I thought they were pretty cool, so I snapped a photo and then enjoyed the music. So back to present day, this picture seemed important. I open it, I turn to her and say, "Do you know this band?" She looks at me and says, "You see that person in the middle of your shot who is staring at you?" Yeah, that's me. I lost my mind, the chance of seeing this band when they strolled by, her being a part of it and being there for that weekend, taking that picture, centering her while she made eye contact with me, encountering her 8 years later, being neighbors, dating, and finding that picture while we were side by side. I've had a lot of coincidences in life, but that one still gets me. My wife and I were looking to hire a caterer for our wedding, and when we met, my wife and her started talking about their lives a bit. Turns out they had both literally grown up on the same street, in a city of 10 million people, on the other side of the world. Both had left the city around a decade before immigrating to our current country. They knew the same people, had hung out at the same coffee place, attended the same church. They even used to grab mangoes off the same large tree that hung over the wall of one of the large houses in the neighborhood. But they had never met one another until meeting on almost the exact opposite side of the planet, in a small town of about 50,000 people. At 10 I flew from west side of North America to the east to stay with my grandparents for the summer. They took me to a small touristy town to see trains. Walking down the street we passed a kid in my class. Not friends but knew each other. We both just casually said hello and continued, but each of our grandparents freaked the frick out. Wait, how do you know that kid? Didn't faze me then, but 40 years later it weirds me out. Through a series of weird circumstances I had never met my best friend's older sister's best friend, despite me also being very close to the sister and being at their house all the time. We finally met one night and we were all sitting around the kitchen table talking. She and I are both major cat people and we were talking about our past and current cats. I told her the crazy and horrible story of how my cat had been missing since the night of my senior prom, 3 weeks prior. He was 13 and I was devastated. I showed her a picture of him and she said something along the lines of, "I don't want to get your hopes up, but he looks a lot like this cat my dad started feeding in our backyard about 3 weeks ago. He didn't have a collar, so my dad thought he was a stray, but he is pretty chunky." It was like 11 p.m. but my friend and I immediately jumped into my car and drove over to the girl's house. As soon as I got out of the car and yelled his name, he came running. He was missing a tooth from a previous adventure, so I pried his mouth open to be 100% sure it was him. The friend lived about 3 miles from me. After we worked out what had happened and how huge of a coincidence it was, my mind was completely blown. The stars aligned so perfectly for me to get my baby boy back. I still get goosebumps when I think about it. Several years ago, I had a husky that was getting on in years. I was very in tune with him, enough that I knew which whines or cues meant which need or want. He had a particularly unique one that signaled when he needed a bathroom break. As he got older, he started needing to go outside in the middle of the night too. Old man problems, am I right? LOL. When he got to be a bit past 11 years old, my fiancé and I started noticing that I could hear him from across the house. Then, we noticed that he never failed to wake me up at night, even though he wouldn't come in the bedroom to get me, just meet me at the back door. One day she was sitting on the couch with the dog and watching TV, while I was taking a nap in the other room. I had sound dampening headphones in, with light music going to help drown out distractions. I woke up to the sound of this dog making a loud enough racket to wake me up. Through all of those precautions, pulled on pants and shoes and stepped into the next room, where my partner asked what was wrong. I said the dog was whining. She disagreed. So we looking to the dog, who made the tiniest "I need outside" whine, before getting up and going to the back door. It was surreal. And then it happened more. I'd be outside in my workshop and hear the dog whine. Within 2 minutes, my partner would be bringing the pup out to do his business. To the day he died, I could tell what that dog needed, when he needed it, regardless of distance. Currently, I have a 2-year-old husky that I've started hearing at different volumes than my partner. I'm not psychic. But I think that just maybe, some dogs are. That is it for today. Thanks for watching. Don't forget to like and subscribe. See you in the next one.